Welcome to the Steel Birds podcast, starring your hosts Corey King and Harry Brockington IV, aka Brock.
Sir.
It's good, man.
What's up, man?
How goes it?
Man, it's going. That's all. That's all I have to say for right now. Until
another week closer.
Right until game one, it's going.
Yeah, no doubt. So today we're going to talk about the Steelers' second preseason game because I talked about the Eagles one last week. We're gonna let Brock talk about what he saw, what storylines came out of that, and then just gonna talk about just more training camp news, what was going on in practice this week for both our teams, and then get into like some roster bubble guys, cut candidates, that type of thing as we enter this last preseason game. A lot of people have opportunities to do their thing or lose their jobs. So we're going to talk about that. And then, of course, wrap it up with grind our gears. So if you're ready, man, let's hear it. How did preseason week 2 go for y'all?
Man, I feel like week 1 was no surprise. First time everyone kind of playing together, not everybody playing too, just some of the guys that are trying to make a name for themselves. So it was kind of whatever. And then this game, it was like kind of like a step back, I would say. Like offensively, Russ, there's some things that happened in the game, and then there's some things that came out afterwards to kind of explain why things happened, but it still wasn't a good showing. So I'll say that Russ, just didn't look comfortable. Got sacked a bunch of times, but which obviously that's the offensive line. But just with him, it just kind of felt like he couldn't find anyone that was open, which I guess would be the wide receivers as well. And he kind of just looked, sluggish back there. So I'm not sure if that's the calf or just him being 35 years old at this point. But offensively, it just wasn't great. There's a lot of things in the first week that Arthur Smith schemed up that everybody on Twitter was very excited about because it was things that Steelers fans hadn't seen in, 5 to 10 years, throwing over the middle, play action, deceit plays into runs, into, small, flat routes, smaller routes. And it's just, it looked like real football for the first time in a long time. And jet sweeps in motion that weren't, irrelevant for no reason. It was just stuff that we haven't seen. But it kind of felt like he dialed it back this week and went more kind of vanilla runs and just, regular schematic stuff, which is fine because that's what preseason is. But overall, it was just the offensive line very much underachieving. Roger Jones did not have a good showing. He is, which I'm not really understanding this, playing injured, to a degree because he has a brace on his elbow. He has been, interviewed to say that his elbow is injured. So for him being a starter, I'm not sure why he would, be held out at that game. But yeah, Greg Rousseau completely destroyed him on multiple drives, and it was the reason why a lot of drives ended very early. It was him specifically getting beat on those plays, and so just wasn't a good outing for the offense. But on the opposite side for defense, it was the complete opposite. The defense looked crazy good, and Cam Hayward, TJ, Alex Highsmith, they didn't even play. The rest of the starters and, the back end played for a little bit. But even like the backup guys came in and it was very nasty. If we could have even scored on 2 drives, it would have been easily a different game. But that was really encouraging to see that it's looking like we're going to probably have like a top 5 defense, especially if everyone stays healthy. It's going to be very nasty. Up front, I don't feel like, even the best of O-lines are going to be able to block our front 7. And then it really just the back end staying healthy because our starters are very solid. We kind of have, decent guys behind them, but I'm very excited about the defense, and that's not just the same old thing because everyone says like, the Steelers defense is usually good, but this is like, one of the better defenses, especially having true corners. We haven't had true lockdown corners in a really, really long time. Joey Porter Jr. came out in his rookie season and showed that he was, all the hype that we hoped him to be. Dante Jackson has been staying healthy, and looks fast. He's covering very well. So really glad that's showing. But even the nickels and the depth behind them are looking good too. So that was really the bright spot in this game was the defense. So I'm hoping in the next game both sides can play well and everybody can come out healthy. But as far as a grade, I'm definitely giving it like a C minus, and that's solely on the defense on that part. But yeah, not what you want to see in a game. But as I said, it came out kind of at the end of the week after that, just kind of saying that Arthur kind of pulled a lot of punches when Russ was in there. He said that he didn't give Russ the same package of plays that he gave Justin when Justin came in. Justin didn't play, I feel, worse than Russ, but he also didn't wow anything either. He just kind of played so and was just out there. But Arthur Smith did come out and say that he gave Justin a different set of plays than he did Russ, which was kind of telling on Russ not being completely healthy. And then Russ being interviewed this week, has been very confident, saying that he's not worried about the offensive line or anything like that. And he feels like they're going to be ready to go week one. So, it could just be the preseason, woes that everyone goes through, or the highs. You never really know preseason. So there's also that. But all in all, you just want your team to play well, regardless of whatever the reason is why they're not playing well. So that's basically what it was for game 2 for us.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough too because he got injured, he's kind of behind schedule among the other QBs that are playing this preseason. Yeah. So, it's just he just has to kind of get back into it, I guess, and hopefully by the time week 1 comes around, you guys are good to go.
Yeah,
you got the Falcons week 1, right?
Yeah, we got the Falcons. So I think that's also what they were saying as well. Like the expectation of Arthur showing anything wouldn't make sense because he's literally going against his old team week 1. It still would be the same thing if we were going against them week 7 or 8. It's like they're gonna get that film somehow, some way, anyways. But why show anything we would be doing literally the first game of the season of the team you just came from? So it's like I do understand that makes perfect sense. The offensive line not being completely healthy, that makes sense too. So all in all, like you said, just hopefully come 2 weeks, they're ready to go.
Yeah, definitely. In Eagles news, most recently the big thing was that the Eagles traded for Jahan Dotson, who was a first-round pick in 2022. He at a Penn State, he had a pretty good rookie year with Carson Wentz as his quarterback and Sam Howell, I think, was last year, right? Yeah. And Taylor Heineke and Carson Wentz. Yeah, that's a rough start to your career. And he still, had over 500 yards each season. So the big thing, going into the offseason and throughout training camp, the big question mark for the offense, besides how's the new offense is going to look, is who's going to be receiver 3, who's going to step up. And, the Eagles signed Paris Campbell. They drafted Johnny Wilson and Nia Smith. Brought in John Ross. They tried out a bunch of different things, but a lot of the people on Twitter that I follow that know Howie Roseman well and know how he runs things, they were like, don't be surprised if the Eagles make a trade for receiver 3 because no one's satisfied with this group. One injury to Devontae or AJ Brown and we were going to be in serious trouble. So he makes the trade, gets a guy who has the versatility. I think it was 55% of his snaps were on the outside and the other half, or 45%, was in the slot. So he can line up wherever, get open, find holes in the zones. Very solid receiver and has the opportunity to really, do his thing because he had 906 snaps last year. and got 518 yards. And last year, Olamide Zaccheaus and Quez Watkins combined for 771 snaps, and they were like our receiver three. Both of them combined were our receiver three.
Right.
And they barely had 306 yards between the two of them. So he has a huge opportunity to really like kind of redeem himself. It may be a little like embarrassing to get traded away, as a former first round pick, whatever. Everyone's calling you a bust. Now it's time to show like, hey, you're going to have your chance, because with AJ Brown and Devontae Smith and Saquon Barkley and Dallas Goedert out there, like people are going to give you opportunities to get open and do your thing. So, and again, like even in 2022, when we went to the Super Bowl, Quez Watkins had 680 snaps, 33 catches, 354 yards. So it's like we don't need a number 3 receiver to be dominant in order to be good. But if he just does kind of the bare minimum and is out there and executes, we should have no problem seeing him succeed. So other than that, this week in training camp, it was like the last week that was open to the media, I think. And on the last day, of course, Jalen Hurts finally threw an interception, and it was to Darius Slay. And, afterwards in this press conference, he was like, yeah, I told Slay finally, like whatever, like. So I think they said he was at 305 pass attempts without an interception. So pretty good. Can't complain, and hopefully it continues into the season of him taking care of the ball and, not having the kind of turnover issues that he had last year, and can get back to like 2022 form. And other than that, everything else kind of is the same old. Defense looks solid, offense looks solid. We just got to see tomorrow how these preseason games go and who's gonna finally make the roster when that time comes. But yeah, so without further ado, let's if you're ready, let's hop into like our cut candidates, bubble guys.
Do it.
All right. You wanna start us off here? Who's your number one or one of your guys?
Yeah, I have like 4 dudes. I mean, there's probably, more, and everyone probably has more than 4 guys, but the main ones, I'm going to focus on are going to be 4 dudes. So the first one going to be, pretty obvious, Justin Fields. A lot of people say, like, regardless of how, tomorrow goes, Russ could throw 10 interceptions and Justin could play really well, that Russ is going to start. I don't necessarily believe that. I know, the term pole position has been thrown around, and I'm really getting sick of hearing that anyway. So I'm really just wanting the season to start because that's what everyone is saying. Mike Tomlin said Russ is in pole position, whatever. Coaches say a lot of things, okay? We all know Cliff Kingsbury said that Josh Rosen was their quarterback. And we seen what happened with that, okay? And that's just one example of very many.
Don't bring his name up on this podcast.
We can say it was like KJ. Okay. People do call him, so we'll just say that. But nonetheless, these coaches, these front office, they lie? Okay, it is what it is. So, not saying that Mike Tomlin is a liar. He does it a lot, but I'm just saying it happens. It's going to happen. Okay, so yes, if they play the same, if Russ plays better, then yeah, what he said, all the months ago is going to be true. But if Russ is out there kind of looking hampered, not that he gets injured, but he just looks like he's not 100%, he's not making anything happen, and Justin does, that would make absolutely no sense to me, especially because you got Justin, for him not to start week 1. But he has to go out there and do it. So my number one candidate of you literally are going to be QB2 the whole season if and unless Russ gets injured, if you don't play well. That's basically my thing. Like if you don't play well tomorrow, there's no way you're getting on the field the entire season if Russ doesn't get injured. If he plays well the
Yeah.
whole season, that's just what it is. So, I feel like
Yeah.
this is kind of his last chance, or they might. I'm not a fan of this because it's not college football, but there's been talk of him coming in packages, goal line, whatever, so he can run whatever. But my point is, him taking consistent snaps as a QB1 is probably not going to happen if he doesn't play well. So, looking to him to run the offense smoothly, no interceptions, obviously. Got to make some splash plays, and it can't just only be running. You got to see some type of deep ball, some type of precision dot over the middle from you, something that kind of shows that, like, everything that's been said of you in Chicago isn't true. The processing has to be real quick. So that's what I want to see from Justin. And did you want to go and then we just go back and forth? You want me to? Okay, yeah. So that's my number one is Jay Fields.
Yeah. For me, this is my guy is going to be James Bradbury as someone I think that the Eagles are just going to have to cut. It was going into the offseason, it was someone that people were saying, oh, they're going to find a trade partner. They're going to put him at safety. He's going to, look better at safety because he can't cover the way he did at corner. All that shit is over with. The James Bradbury experiment just needs to end. We tried all the different things. We gave him opportunities to be a better player and be in a better position to make plays, and he just hasn't shown it. I got PFF stats here. In this preseason, among all the Eagles corners and safeties that have taken any snaps, James Bradbury is ranked dead last in coverage grade. So it just goes to show, like, if he's not better than a young guy who is showing some promise, why are we keeping him around just because he has a contract? No, we got to just take the L, cut him, move on, and bring around this fresh new secondary that has actual talent and speed and coverage ability. And no disrespect to him, it's just he doesn't have it anymore, and that's okay. And the Eagles just got to take their losses and move on. I don't think this last preseason game is going to do anything for him. I don't think he can have like some great game. They're like, all right, we're going to keep him and play him at safety. No, it's done with. We tried and we got to move on. So that's my first guy.
That's definitely
yeah.
Yeah. My second dude is going to be Corey Trice Jr. Talked about him on here before. 7th round pick out of Purdue last year. Had a really promising camp last season and tore his ACL. This year has been really healthy. Hasn't had any hindrance coming back from that. When Dante Jackson had vet days or just days where he had, bumps and bruises, as Mike Tom likes to call them, and he sat out, Corey Trice was the number one corner opposite of Joey Porter Jr. And then the same thing for Joey Porter Jr. If he was out, Corey Trice took that spot. So it's looking like he's the number one guy on either side coming in. But I feel like he has to have, one last game that shows that, he deserves to be the third guy coming out there. He has to stay healthy because, he's had, I won't say a plethora of injuries, but a good amount in college. And then obviously the ACL tear. And so being a 7th round pick already, you're already on the cusp. You're basically just like an undrafted free agent at that point of having to prove yourself. And, I feel like if he does get injured, at all, it's probably looking like he'll get cut, regardless of the upside and the talent that he's shown, just because, when you're that late of a pick and then you haven't really shown anything on tape, it's hard to keep a guy like that around when there's other dudes that are out there trying to make rosters who don't have injury histories and that can kind of do the same thing. So just looking for him to have a consistent game, not showing that he's behind the 8 ball at all with covering any routes or any guys who might have some speed or anything like that, showing, the knee injury at all, and just being available is really going to be the biggest thing for him. So if he can do that, it's going to be, special for him because there's a lot of hype around him last draft season of him being in that, 3rd round area, being like a steal in that regard. But, the injuries just made him that 7th round pick, and we just happened to take a chance on him. So just really rooting for him and hoping that can happen for him because it's really just going to help Dante Jackson and Joey Porter Jr. So
Yeah, nice. Um, for the Eagles, the next like position that I had in mind, or it's really two guys that I'm just going to talk about. The there's a lot of talk going into the offseason about uh, who was going to be right guard. It looks like it's Mekhi Becton's job, and then we have Mekhi Becton now. Cam Jurgens moved from guard to center, and then we have Landon Dickerson at left guard. But after that, there was a lot of position battles. There's a lot of opportunity for people to kind of step up and do their thing. And unfortunately for both of them, Tyler Steen, who is the first guy, and Matt Hennessy is the second guy. Those are two guys who had opportunities to make the best of what they had and try and win a job. Tyler Steen, especially, he was going into the preseason the starting right guard. And him and Mekhi Becton were going to have a battle, and looks like Mekhi Becton won that. Then he gets injured, and Matt Hennessy, a guy that we signed in the offseason, was someone who could have played, guard or been there as a depth piece, but he got injured as well. So just guys that unfortunately for them, I'm not sure. I think they're still pretty banged up. I don't think either of them can play tomorrow. I'm not 100% sure on that. But even so, I think those are two guys that just kind of lost their chance to be a starter or be a depth piece. And unfortunately for them, I think one, if not both of them, could be cut, because the Eagles really like what they see out of Trevor Keegan, the guard from Michigan, and Dylan McMahon, the center from I believe North Carolina State. So those are guys that have some versatility. They're younger. They look good. They're protecting. They can pass protect well. Let Jeff Stoutland cook with them and see what we have. But these older vets that we signed and we're hoping to be starters or depth pieces, it's not looking too great for them. And unfortunately for them, they got kind of injured, so they couldn't really give their full. They didn't get the full opportunity, but that's kind of just how football goes sometimes. So those are two guys that they can't really necessarily prove anything, but without playing, but they're probably gonna, one or both could get cut in theory. So we'll just have to see what happens. But yeah.
sounds good. Yeah, I'm going to do the same thing because I have two more guys, but it's the same position, so I'm going to talk about both of them as well.
Word.
And it's Jeremiah Moon and Kyron Johnson. Talked about them last time as well. And then when I looked into it, I actually saw that Kyron Johnson was, got picked up by you guys in 2022, actually, as a free agent. And so he's kind of bounced around, but he's in running for that four edge spot that I talked about. We have TJ obviously and Alex Highsmith, with Nick Herbig playing very well. So those three spots are obviously locked up, but we lost that fourth spot. And so, Kyron Johnson has had a great camp, hasn't been injured too much where he's missed time, has played well in the first two preseason games. And same thing with Jeremiah Moon. He actually was undrafted out of Florida with the Ravens last year, and he's been the same thing. And so it's really great to see that regardless of which way we go, it's going to be two guys who are going to give you what we need in that fourth spot. But it just sucks to know that we're probably not going to keep both of them. And so with both of them playing well, it just, one of them is not going to, get what they want, at least out of the Steelers. But both of them, have to play well. And obviously, whichever one either gets injured or, God forbid, and then doesn't play well, that's the one that's not going to be on the roster. So looking forward to both of those guys playing because, Marcus Golden just, decided to retire. That kind of hurt us in that spot because that was going to be a really solid guy to come into that fourth spot. So now we have these two younger dudes who, it's great, that they're a lot younger than Marcus is. But, there's a battle going on. So hopefully both of them play well, and they make it hard on the coaches on who deserves to stay. But I'm looking at that spot really because, unfortunately, both TJ and Alex kind of have had, decent injury histories. But even when they go out, we don't really want, to miss a step. And that's why Nick has been able to lock up that third spot because, when they do come out, he comes in and he wrecks stuff. And, he's already undersized at 6'2", but doesn't matter. His speed is really what separates him. And so for Jeremiah and Chiron, they really have the size, both of them, being 6'4" and 6'5". So really want to see them come out there and kind of do the same thing. And so we don't really miss a beat when those guys come out.
Nice. Yeah. Is your guys' game tomorrow as well?
Yeah, it's at 4. So yeah, it's at 4.
Yeah. So yeah, for both of our teams, we both are looking forward to our games tomorrow to kind of see how everything shakes out.
Yeah.
It'll definitely be interesting, especially for you guys. You guys have a lot more like
stuff to figure out.
To figure out.
We'll call it that.
Starting with the QB, yeah. So yeah, that's good shit. So yeah, let's hop into grind our gears and wrap this thing up.
Cool.
All right. I can start us off today. It's nothing too serious here. I'm not too my gears aren't too grinded about it. But I'm just so sick of, I guess it's just typical like preseason shit. We just need to get to the season, but I'm so tired of people just like trying to find reasons to like say Jalen Hurts isn't like good at throwing the ball. Like the minute the Jahan Dotson trade was announced, you had fans from all over the place and even some media people being like, oh, well, Jalen Hurts still gonna, struggle. He still needs to shut the fuck up, man. Like Jalen Hurts has thrown for 20 touchdowns and ran for 10 2 seasons in a row. He's the first QB to ever do that. And next year, he'll be the first, if he does it next year or this season, he'll be the first player to ever have 3 total seasons of doing that, let alone 3 in a row. So, like, the offense is going to be fine. Jalen Hurts is going to be fine. Like, if you're going to criticize him, then say, like, he struggled against the blitz last year. He threw more interceptions last year. He didn't run as much last year. That's valid. Those are, objectively true things that you can criticize him for that he was not good at last year. But to just be like, oh, he needs all those weapons and he can't even throw 30 touchdowns. Who cares? If you get to the red zone and he's scoring on a QB sneak instead of throwing a pass to Jahan Dotson and we still win the game, why does it matter that he's not throwing 30 touchdowns and 5,000 yards and all this stuff that, doesn't matter at the end of the game, at the end of the day? Like, let's just win games and be an efficient offense and score points. I don't want Jalen Hurts to be like Dak Prescott where he has all these stats but no accomplishments at all, or not even to diss Dak. There's quarterbacks all over the league that are putting up numbers but aren't winning games. So I just don't understand that criticism of him being like, well, he needs all these weapons and he can't even. Okay, you got it, man. I'm not gonna argue all that. I'm glad we made the trade for Jahan Dotson. It's gonna help our offense, but that has nothing to do with Jalen Hurts' ability to play quarterback. Like I tweeted about it last week, I think, or a few weeks ago. It was like he was tied for 8th in PFF passing grade this season with Brock Purdy, and people are acting like he was one of the worst QBs in the league because he threw like 13 interceptions last year. It's like, all right, if y'all want to believe that, that's fine. But until he shows me that he isn't good, I'm gonna, give him the benefit of the doubt and think that he's gonna be a solid QB and hopefully for a long time. So that's my little rant. What you got?
Honestly, and that's I definitely agree with that because you could argue or say if in your opinion if you don't want to say that he's a top 5 quarterback, whatever. But what you can say is he's not like a QB1. He's a franchise quarterback. Obviously, he's shown that. So yeah, I'm not understanding that either. But media is going to media, so gotta just let them do that. But mine is kind of a little bit similar to one that I had back in the beginning of summer, where we kind of talked about the random time off that the NFL gives the players after the
Mm.
OTAs, and then kind of it, showing, which some people have talked about, why maybe these dudes get injured, because your body's going to have to, ramp back up for, high level play. And you just had this random, break for no reason. And so next week, or this week, is the last preseason game. Next week, nothing's going on. And then the season starts. Why do we need that week off? Can we just get rid of that? That's what grinds my gears. Just like, can we just have the season start right after that? What do we need to do here? Go look at the film. Monday, Tuesday, whatever. Most teams are off on Monday. They look at the film. You get your staff together on who did what, who you felt did enough, who didn't, and then you play. I don't feel like that whole extra week is needed, especially because most teams aren't playing their starters. It's just the twos and threes, really, or maybe the fours, that are playing. So it's not even like your main guys. We need that week off to recover. No, because majority of them haven't even played, so they're fresh. And like I said, it doesn't take long to just look at the film, in the coming days. If you played yesterday, you're playing today, tomorrow. So there's plenty of time, throughout that whole entire process to look at the film to see who did enough and who didn't. So just get rid of the whole break, because it doesn't make sense. One, for the fans and the anticipation. I'm being selfish. Yeah, we want it to be right away. But also it's just, too, it's like the same thing. Some of the stars are getting revved up, getting ready for the season. It's like, oh, they got to wait a whole nother season or a whole nother week. And I don't think any of them would say, well, yeah, like, we need that. Or, yeah, I like that so that I can kind of get my body back right. It's like, no, it feels weird to not really do anything. And then all of a sudden, week one, you got to go crazy. You got to make sure you're ready to go, because, a lot of the times that week one game does kind of show a lot. And at the end of the season, people might say like, oh, that really doesn't matter. But that could be one win that you needed towards the end of the season, or even just,
Yeah.
showing that you have something together. Like, having a slow start is never a good thing. And so I just feel like that all plays a role within itself. And so I would like for the NFL, they want to add this 18th game. Forget that. How about just take away that week, make preseason 2 weeks, whatever you want to do. I know I've talked about, that kind of hinders guys and trying to make a roster, but something has to be done to where, like, that random week, it just doesn't make sense. So just take that out completely. So
Yeah.
that's mine.
Nah, that's a valid criticism, because we're seeing people blow ACLs, left and right, with this kind of scheduling, the way it's kind of happening already. So
Right.
yeah, hopefully, God willing, there's not many come week one, but this could be a contributing factor, like you said.
Yeah.
And that's what I was going to say too when you were talking, like, they want to add this 18th game. If they got to figure out a way to, like, make the schedule more make sense and give people proper rest during the season, but not like before the season, like you're saying.
Yeah.
Like, it's just not really beneficial to the players the way they think it is.
Right. And if you're going to add the 18th game, that doesn't benefit the players. The players have come out and said that they don't want that. But if you're going to do
Of
that
course.
to be selfish, at least do something on the back end, which is, like I said, take away that random time in the summer that you're having them get off. Take away this random week for no reason, and at least accommodate them. And then maybe there is two preseason games where there's less chance to get injured, but it's on the cusp guys to really go hard in camp, because then instead of that third preseason game, you've got to show, more in camp. And maybe you have scrimmages and stuff like that to kind of simulate a third game or whatever. And then you still get those 2 games, and that's enough evaluation. But, have to be hand in hand. Don't just screw the players and then they still have to do all this other stuff that they don't want, that doesn't accommodate their bodies, and then you're seeing the results, and then you want to complain about fans being mad about this guy being injured, and we're not going to make money because this star player is not going to play. Well, it's y'all's fault, and you should take ownership of that, because it's nobody else to blame but yourselves, because you want to be greedy
Yeah.
and you want the money, but then you're going to lose out in the end with certain fans and players coming out and exposing you and stuff like that. So it's real simple. just do right by the players, because they're the reason why all this is working in the first place. So,
well said. Yeah, that's all we got this week. Well, next week we'll hop on. We'll talk about last preseason game and kind of just news around the league. Hopefully, Brandon Ayuk gets fucking traded, and
I'm done with that.
there's
Don't care
things
anymore.
to discuss around the league. But yeah, we're 1 week closer to the season, and you guys definitely want to stay tuned as that comes. So, follow us on socials at Stillbirds Podcast, at ItzyBoyCK, at Brock_IV. Find us on every streaming platform: YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and we will catch y'all next time.
Yep. See y'all next time.